I don't think that there has been, that there's a family in these mountains, maybe not even in the state, that has not been touched by the fallout from addiction.
Forgive me for being exactly who I am. Forgive me for crossing paths once again.
You know, it's just devastating. It's devastating to the addict. People think an addict is just out doing what they want and having fun, and it's just, man, it's awful. I don't know of anything really could get much worse than someone in full-blown addiction, and they've completely lost power over the ability to make decisions in their life, because that drug will completely take over your mind and your body and your spirit as well, where you don't care about anything or anyone.
Truthfully, the only thing that separates you and I from someone that is incarcerated is a bad set of circumstances, a couple bad choices, a couple bad days.
Not a lot of people are receptive to those folks. A lot of them have kind of made a mess in their own communities, and when they're released from incarceration, not a lot of people are wanting to employ them and a little bit afraid of them.
At the end of the day, these are our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, and if we could get back to a place where we realize that and we treat them as such, I think we could see those stereotypes come down and real change start to happen.
I couldn't honestly say that I think jail would be the right place to treat an addict. If somebody was there and they're going to be incarcerated in jail, in prison I know they have classes, they had programs there, and they also had the space and the cash to run these programs, and I've seen a lot of people get help, but they had the time to see it through. In a jail, there's no time to really dig into where, I guess you could say there's just not enough time there to help them the way they need help.
Everybody that comes in jail is stages. You come in sick, can't eat, and then you can tell when people start feeling better because they start eating. And once they get to that point and start laughing, when you can see somebody laugh, you know, and starting to have a good time sober, that's when people need to be out of jail and in a rehab to learn how to stay that way.
I mainly work here in the Letcher County area with Judge Mullins to help get people out of jail and incarceration into treatment, where we believe that's the only chance for a true recovery to happen. So that's kind of what I'm focused on doing. And the company I work for is an amazing company. It's the largest recovery company in Kentucky. I've been working there for about a year now. I worked there because I battled that. I came through that side of the life for 20 years. I was in the addiction, not the fighting it, the doing it. And I was in the incarceration part of that as well. I've got 7 felonies. I've did about a decade in prison. And you know, I just know that is not an alternative. Prison, jails, that stuff's not gonna solve the issues that we're dealing with. But when you first start, you gotta get a community to believe that people can really recover. You gotta get a court system to believe we can do more than just put them in jail. But you know, we've let 20 years of thinking you can police your way out of this problem or just lock them all up. We got to change that, because it's repeat offenders. It's not like jail is a one-time thing. Normally it's a cycle.
There's so much turnaround and inmates coming in, same inmates over and over, the revolving door, I think they call it. That creates problems because they're stuck, they can't go nowhere.
When your body is physically cramped and you do not have room to freely move about, or your own personal space, or at least a small amount of personal space, you know, what that does to the brain. I mean, science shows us that, you know, incarceration is hard, and it's hard on the brain and the brain chemistry. When our program initially started, we wanted to focus it around addiction recovery, trauma-sensitive yoga. We just kind of looked at the needs of the population we were serving, and we tried to just kind of pull components of trauma-informed yoga therapy and addiction recovery yoga therapy together to form a program.
I couldn't say that I didn't recommend any facility, big or small, not to have programs. The more the human mind stays busy, the less they're thinking about being stressed or thinking about their family or the people, loved ones they can't see. And so that anger is directed somewhere positive, like, instead of negative.
To be honest with you, I decided that it was in my best interest to no longer teach there. At times I was becoming not as fulfilled by the work as I was when I started. It's difficult to know who really supports and wants significant and lasting change versus who wants good public relations. There have been times that I have felt guilty for being able to walk out those doors, because you make friendships, you make those connections and they're real. And so, sometimes I feel like I'm leaving behind friends or loved ones. And it's very difficult, especially when you see some of the challenges they are dealing with in there.
Being a felon it's really tough here. And, it embarrasses me to death because, that's not who I am. That's not the way I was raised. I was in the Army, and after I deployed, I started drinking 30 beers a day, sometimes 60, just out of control. And I don't know, maybe I was chasing the adrenaline that I was used to, from deployment. I don't know. But it felt like my life was empty, kind of. Like I had no purpose no more. I just got out of the military and stuff, and I was just drinking, and they were doing heroin. And it took them almost all night to convince me, and I was like, well, I'll try a little line. And so I tried it, and I was like, okay, it is good. It wasn't 3 hours later, I done it, and I just remember floating on my toes, and I felt like that gravity was gone, and I was just going around the room, and I kept looking over at these girls, and they were I just seen the panic in their face, asking me if I was all right. I could read their lips, but I couldn't hear nothing. It was like the whole entire world was gone. And from that point, I woke up in a ambulance, and they were doing the adrenaline thing. They done the Narcan. And I woke up what just happened? But my mouth was so dry, I couldn't even open my mouth. So I wanted to ask them what was wrong, and they don't talk. And they were working on me. I had all these little heart things all over me. And then I realized, I was I bet I overdosed. So after I got hydrated enough to talk, my first thing was, did y'all throw that dope away? Because it was good enough to overdose me. Then it was awesome. I got my money's worth, and I wanted more even after I was just dead.
One of the components of our program were weekly journaling topics and prompts. And this is one that was written by one of my students. The prompt was, tell me what I should know about you or what you wish others knew about you. And he says, well, I'm from Knott County. I'm 40 years old. I've been a drug addict for over 20 years, but for the last 1.5 years, I've been in a Suboxone clinic trying to get my life straight for my 4 daughters. They are my world, and I'm a little overprotective of them. My youngest is 9, and then my other is 11. I have one that's 12 and another that's 15. I have 2 boys, but they passed away. One would be 8, and he was stillborn, and the other would be 18. He was bullied at school, and he shot himself 3 years ago. You know that I've got a brother, and our mother was killed in front of us when I was 15 and he was 13. On December 21st, 25 years ago, we buried her on Christmas Eve. I've had a hard life, and I turned to drugs to deal with everything. I really have done better the last year and a half, but every time I do something, something else happens to make me want to go back to doing drugs again. I'm a single dad, and I give my daughters everything they ask for if I can. I really like starting your yoga class. It helps me clear my head. When I get out, I would like to continue with it, and I will have to find a class or something.
What made me want to really change my life was a letter I received from my daughter, who was 15, and I was locked up when I got that letter, and she said, "Dad, that me and Carson, which is my son, we've decided to move on with our life, and you'll always be our father, but you've constantly broke our hearts, and we want you to step out of our life." And it broke me, and I feel like there's got to be a breaking point for everyone to come to recovery, to come to the truth.
I think that they have to be able to prove themselves, and once given a chance to prove themselves, it's been my experience that most of them will prove out. The bakery is a social enterprise. It was established a little over a year ago. We're trying to create some community wealth and try to employ some people who need employment.
I was incarcerated for 34 months, and when I got out, Gwen is my aunt, and she was talking about starting a brick oven and stuff. So as soon as the oven was done, you know, we just kind of tore straight into it. Since the bakery, you know, like I said, everybody was done with me the way I was. So I got clean, and Gwen's like the most understanding person in this world. And when she was talking about this, she was like, "You need a second chance. You can do anything that you put your mind to."
It's hard for a human to ask for that help, that guidance. You know, everybody grows up different.
If you've not been through it, it's easy to judge it. But walk a day in their shoes and then throw stones. I just wish we would quit looking down on this like people's trash.
I want people to look at me just normal, you know, not down, just normal. People do change. And most people that do come out of recovery, they're only not changing, they go extra. Because I feel like I've done so much negative and put so much negative in the world that like now I got to counteract that with an extra amount of positive.
We're just not recovering. You know, we're thriving. I want to let people know that you can overcome this like we can overcome anything else that we might go through. We can overcome poverty right here. We can overcome a lack of educational opportunity, whatever it might be. I want us to just flip how we look at things and quit looking at the problem and start looking for solutions. You know, my best advice, and if somebody's watching this, and I hope to God it gets out, man, you're not alone, number one. Don't isolate yourself. And there's people out there that love you and is not going to condemn you.
Forgive me for being exactly who I am. Forgive me for crossing paths once again. Isn't it funny that life dictates who I am? Forgive me for treating you exactly who you are. It's my fault I've taken this much too far.